Hello, avid readers, book nerds, or casual observers. Welcome to the Read Along, brought to you by the Lit Round Table. I'm Anna.
And I'm Joseph, and this is our read-along of The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. All right, welcome to week 8 of The Poppy War.
Yes, talking about chapters 21 through 23 this week. If you're listening to this and you have not read the book, trigger warning on chapter 21 specifically.
Yeah.
Assuming you're not listening to this without having read the book, because that would be silly, because the book is much better than just our conversation about it. Mm-hmm. You already know that chapter 1 was really heavy.
Chapter 21 was perhaps, I had read it first, mm-hmm. and then I immediately had to text you about it. I was like, hey, just a heads up when you read chapter 21. This is maybe the darkest piece of fiction, chapter in a work of fiction that I have read. And I have never read something that made me feel... I've never read a work of fiction that has made me feel that, physically ill afterwards.
Yeah. So, just want to acknowledge that at the very top. Mm-hmm. That this section was particularly challenging. Mm-hmm. So... before we really dive into that, we have a little bit of housekeeping, because next time we're finishing the book, which means we got to figure out what our next read-along book is going to be.
Indeed. And aren't you glad we didn't lock in on
I am.
sequel?
I am, because I am going to need a little bit of a break after chapter 21.
Yes.
So
for sure.
So anyway, for our Patreons, members of our Patreon, you can vote on our next read-along book. Mm-hmm. By the time this is live, that poll will have been posted, and here are your options. I got to pick the books this time. I think we've talked about how much I've read of the Star Wars Extended Universe books as a teen, but we have not, as of yet, brought that into the read-along. So, I do want to offer up Star Wars Queen's Shadow by E.K. Johnston. It's a book about Padme, and it's gorgeous. She wrote the Ahsoka book. I have not read any of her Queen Amidala books, but I have been meaning to. So, or Padme Amidala, because it's not just when she's queen. But anyway, so that's one of the options.
Nice.
Walking in Two Worlds by Kinew is a Native American fantasy / sci-fi, because it's like a digital fantasy. I've been meaning to read this book. It literally jumped off my shelf at me this last week or so. I was working and it fell off my bookshelf, and I thought, ooh, all right, well, that's going to be in our next read-along list. And then Sisters of Sword and Song by Rebecca Ross. I don't know really anything about this book, but it's very pretty. Cool. And that's why I bought it, was because it's pretty. And I am guilty of judging books by their cover.
For sure.
But it's very pretty, and I think it'll be fun. So I think that Star Wars book is also classified as a YA book, technically. So we've got 3 young adult, which should theoretically be a little...
tamer.
Should not be quite as explicit. I don't want to say that YA can't be heavy, because it certainly can be, but it should not be as heavy as what we just experienced this week.
Yeah, for sure.
That was my thought process for that business. So.
Yeah. So go vote on that if you're a Patreon member.
Please do.
And I guess we will be announcing which book will win that distinction in the next episode.
Yes. So I guess now we have to talk about chapter 21.
I guess.
So you did warn me, and at first, as I was, Blake and I listened to this chapter together. He thought maybe that would be helpful to have another person on the journey with me, which I really appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
The first half of the chapter, I was like, wow, this is really disturbing imagery
Mm-hmm.
of dead bodies.
Yes.
Because Rin and the Psyche enter, what is the name of the city?
Oh, Goldenese, I think
Golanice,
is,
yes.
yeah.
They enter Golanice, and it has been absolutely ravaged by the Federation.
Mm-hmm. Was it Molinese? Something anise. Yeah. Um, yeah, very disturbing imagery with the um, killed and dismembered and displayed corpses of soldiers and the population, and it went down really dark places. Like women and children
Yeah.
were not spared. Um,
No.
it was just a bloodbath, and it was horrific to read
Right.
for sure.
It was horrific and highly disturbing. I did
Hmm.
not know that it necessarily warranted the warning you gave me
Right.
until, well, I think we just get the bad stuff out first.
So how do you want to do this? Because
Yeah.
I don't know what should we even say out loud for the sake of
I
like YouTube. I mean, I don't. I
yeah.
guess I'm not worried about like videos getting demonetized because like whatever. But
They're not
um,
monetized anyway.
yeah.
Well, I don't want to get explicit at all.
Okay.
But I do want to acknowledge that Rin ends up finding Venka, one of her
Yeah,
classmates.
and also Kitai.
Kitai. That was the part I want
finds.
to talk about Kitai, but I feel like talking about Kitai right now is a weird split in.
Yeah.
I mean, while you're reading, it's a necessary pause.
Yes, it's a nice break from the horror.
But I want to get all of the horror out of the way,
Yeah.
and then we can talk
Yeah.
about the rest of the story. But I don't want to ignore the horror because I think it's important.
Yeah, for sure.
So Rin finds Venka, and Venka has been subjugated to being horribly brutalized by the Federation soldiers. And she goes into very explicit detail on what happened to her and the other women that were put in these relaxation rooms, which gagged me with a spoon. If you can imagine something terrible, it was there. It happened.
Yeah. And basically, like, however bad you're imagining in your head right now, dial it up like another 3 notches. That's
Right.
pretty much like the level of
Right.
depravity that we're at
Right.
with this.
Which included horrendous sexual crimes and murder.
Yeah.
So horrific.
Mm-hmm.
Stomach churning horror. And I just cannot, it's hard for me to even imagine that ever happening.
Yeah.
But I know that these things do happen to women.
Yes.
And I know that there's an instance with a pregnant woman that she describes that's really awful. And I was just reminded that like the amount of domestic abuse that happens to pregnant women is horrendous. Like the numbers around that are horrifying. And so I just I appreciate R.F. Kuang not turning a blind eye to that part of war.
Yeah.
And human depravity. But my gosh, was it difficult to read?
It was very difficult to read. And the part about it that was most difficult for me, I mean, in a broader sense, of course, like just even reading the words or listening in this case to the words, because I listened to that chapter, it was just difficult to get through in that way, just because you have such a visceral reaction to the things
Mm-hmm.
that you're reading and hearing.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was also really difficult because so usually in like a fantasy story, if I get that way and I'm like getting the ick, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I can usually kind of like disassociate myself from the story and be
Mm-hmm.
like, this is fake. This is just a story. It's not real. Like, it's okay. This didn't really happen. Take a
Mm-hmm.
deep breath. It's just a story for entertainment. But then, there's the history major part of me
Mm-hmm.
that can think of the specific example that I am like 99% sure that this is based on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to see what the real world example of this is, you look up what the Imperial Japanese military did in Nanking, China. And it is basically the same. Like, I've seen the pictures. I've seen,
Oh
because
my.
there were photographs. I've seen photos that I wish I could unsee. And it's, there's no words to describe how terrible it is. And it's like she says in this book, like, this is the result when you don't view your enemies as human.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, they're
Yeah.
just bugs that you step on. Why wouldn't you rip the wings off of an insect? Who cares? You don't care that the insect feels pain.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the level that we're at.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have a former coworker um, who is from China. She's from Shanghai. Her name is Ivory, and she was such a wonderful person. She was so kind and so nice. I love Ivory. Um, and that's her like English name that she gave herself when she immigrated to America.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because she knows that I would never be able to pronounce her Chinese name. um, so she goes by Ivory, and she said she's from Shanghai. She was like, where I'm from in Shanghai, there's not a lot of um, like resentment, or there's not as much resentment towards like Japan or Korea, because that's kind of a well-known thing that Japan, Korea, and China all like there's some generational beef,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Between these three countries taking turns invading each other, like all of this stuff. But she was like, if you're ever in the area near like where Nanking was, there is still a lot of like generational trauma
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of hatred towards Japan
Mm-hmm.
for what they did there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hatred towards Japan for the people that live in that area, and if you see the pictures, you know why. And
Yeah.
it's honestly it it's understandable. I'm not going to say that hatred is ever valid. I don't know. Like, that's a strong stance to take, but it's certainly understandable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really frustratingly unable to disassociate myself from the story,
Yeah.
because I knew the real world example, and it's like I was there, and it
Yeah.
sucked. It
Yeah.
it sucked to read.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a hard time. And the whole relaxation houses thing, yeah, even that, all of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All of that was ripped straight from World War II Imperial Japan. Um, they did that to women. Um, yeah. So
Ugh.
it was a very heavy chapter, and then I texted you about it because,
Yes.
like like the beginning, like the scene of the city being ravaged and like the bodies on display, like it was horrific and terrible. But then we got to the Venka stuff, and I was like, oh, I can't in good conscience not like even give you a heads up with this,
Yeah.
because that's going to be really brutal.
Yeah.
Um,
So apologies to you, dear listener, that we were not able to give you that same heads up, but we did not know.
right,
Um. So.
right. I hope you all did something to take care of yourself after reading that.
Mm-hmm.
Did some self care,
Yeah.
do something you enjoy, take a shower.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, because that was a rough time. That was a very rough time. So, pivoting a little bit, what do you feel like the purpose of including this kind of chapter in the book is, from like a
Oh,
writer's standpoint.
I mean, um, so I think that R.F. Kuang is trying really diligently to be true to the horrors of war.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you want to be true to that kind of horror, you have to include this kind of thing, especially given the clear influence she's drawing from.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think ignoring that would have been, there's so many times when we're telling history that we gloss over the stuff that makes us the most uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if she had not included that, it would have been dishonorable to the people that had suffered.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that it does a significant amount of character work for Rin, because we see now that she can tap into that same hatred that Alton has.
Mm-hmm.
Because we also find out in this section that Alton was subjugated to torture and had to witness torture happening to
Mm-hmm.
the Spearly people,
Mm-hmm.
and that he is fueled by that rage all the time
Yeah.
of the injustice. And Rin did not witness that with Spearly. She didn't even know she was a Spearly until much later. And so she is able to tap into that same hatred that Alton has now.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see those two characters and to have that push for Rin, and then to have that revelation of Alton's backstory
Yeah.
paired together.
Yeah.
To certainly come to understand him a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And then it makes... I don't think that Rin could have made the choice to follow him had that not have happened to Venka. Had she not have known what happened
Yeah.
to Venka and women.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on like the functionality of having this kind of like
Mm-hmm.
from a writer's perspective, like why even include something like this?
Mm-hmm.
Because I agree with everything you said about like wanting to keep it genuine and honest because of the people that did suffer these things, and not
Mm-hmm.
wanting to glaze over it because then you just forget about their suffering and their
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice. Like we shouldn't forget, for sure. So I feel weird about saying I'm glad the chapter's there.
Yeah.
But what I will say is I can appreciate why it's there.
Yes.
I'll word
Agreed.
it that way. And even in the midst of all the horror, there is one little glimmer of joy, and that is that Katai was not among the corpses.
Right.
Um,
Somehow. I will say, I am having a little bit of like...
Plot armor. There's a little bit.
a little plot armor, but like my suspension of disbelief is being challenged a little bit by all of these classmates of hers somehow surviving.
Yeah.
But I think that just is in service of us. So.
Yeah. I think we heard about one of them. I think we've only heard about one of them dying, and I can't even remember his character's name. He was like the one that would kind of show them around. He was like a year above them or something. They talked about how he went off in another division. He was killed.
Yeah. Yes. I can't remember his name either. But yes.
But I think that's the only specific instance of a named classmate being killed so far.
We did hear about Earjaw being murdered.
Right. The strategy instructor.
Which was very sad.
Yeah. That. Oof. Very
to put
bad.
it lightly. Yeah.
But yeah, Kitai's alive, so that's at least good
Mm-hmm.
for Rin to have found him.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And Vanka's alive, but she is not. But she is not.
she's
We'll see.
alive in the strictest sense of the word.
Yes.
She's breathing and her brain is active.
Yeah.
And she's conscious. She's not like in a coma, but
But she is a
if I were
shell.
her, I would maybe wish that I was
I'm sure she
in a
does.
coma. We also learn that, oh my gosh, what's his name? Phoenix Boy.
Alton.
Alton. Thank you. I like all these names are going through my head, and I like blanked on his. He's apparently an opium addict,
Like,
and has been this
whoa.
whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, the smell of smoke on him was not his fire. It was burning opium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then after seeing like what the Federation did to the city and like learning about his backstory of being tortured and witnessing torture, she's suddenly like, oh, I get it.
Yeah. Well,
um,
no, because she discovers Vanka and then she runs to Alton because she thinks that he's going to be able to help her process through this horror. And then she discovers that he has been,
right.
that he's high out of his mind.
And she takes that very bad at first. She's
Yes.
very upset.
She's very angry. And she talks to Chagan about it.
Yeah.
And then he's who explains to her what happened to Alton and why
Right.
he is the way he is and why the psych have been covering for him for so long. And then she understands.
To the point of partaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we have the next part of this, which is just kind of hatching the scheme of we're gonna go to Magic Mountain and we're gonna free all of these basically demigods who are
Former shaman
shamans that have been
overtaken.
imprisoned. Yeah, and we're just gonna. I'm confused as to why Alton believes he can actually control them.
It's pure
I feel like
hubris.
Right. I feel like his sense of reality is just so distorted in this moment. Like, why would they follow you? Even kind of like, how do you think you can control? They're literal gods in like that have possessed humans. I don't know. It
Right.
just seemed crazy to me.
Well, in Rin's... Okay, so he originally presents this plan to Chagan, and Chagan's like, absolutely not, dude. I will not be helping you with this. If I had known this was your plan all along, I would not have gone along with you this long. This is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Chagan is correct. But Alton basically banishes him. And is like, get out of here. I don't want to see your face anymore. And then he tells Rin about... Well, Rin overhears this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then she agrees to go with him and to help him. I will say, like, I think that she goes into it believing that all of these are going to be like Suni, who Alton does have some ability to calm.
Yeah.
But the minute they get to the mountain and open it up, and it is revealed that there are like ages of these shaman buried here.
Yeah.
Older than the Empire. That should have been a huge, like, oh, actually, this is a bad idea.
Yeah. And
Why are these centuries old demigods going to care at all about what's happening right now?
And they've just been tortured, being contained, and they've probably all lost their minds. Like they're all
Right.
they're like they all have questionable sanity.
Right.
And like it's just the most, I don't know, I can't get over the thought process of, I guess it's just, the measures you're willing to take when you're so driven by hatred like Halton is. He's
Yeah.
willing to let the whole world burn down if it means that the Federation also burns with it.
Right.
That's kind of just the vibes I'm getting off of
Right.
him.
Right.
Which is sad. But
Well, and Rin too,
yeah.
because she is so she has the crossroads after Chagan leaves to decide if she's going to go with Alton or not, and she decides she's going to go with Alton, and then they get to the mountain and they unlock Jiang first, which
Mm-hmm.
that was lovely.
Mm-hmm.
What a kooky old man, and I still love him.
I'm glad he's alive.
I'm glad he's alive, but also he has he is aware that he should not have opened the gate at Synagard, and he believes he should have just let the Federation take it,
Yeah.
which is a very hard pill for Rin to swallow. And then he pities Alton, which makes Alton mad, but he's like, we could have done so much more for you, and we really did fail you as your mentors.
Mm-hmm.
Which is sad.
Yeah.
And she's like, but it's not too. He's like, it's not too late for Rin though. She doesn't have to go down this path. And she's given that crossroads again of, do I side with my master or do I side with my commander? And she's still so overcome with hate that she chooses Rin. She chooses Alton.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jiang is like, okay. And then he just re-entombs himself, which I thought was admittedly kind of funny.
Yeah.
But he was like, okay, you made your choice. I'm going to go back to being in a plinth.
Yeah. So he's so weird.
He is so weird. But I mean, he did issue them the warning. He was like, this is not going, you're fools. You are fools.
I feel like that interaction shook Alton's confidence a little bit.
Yeah,
And
as
then,
it should have.
And then the next interaction, I think, shattered it because they went to another plinth. And this one was a little fresher because this is someone who was once a member of the Psych.
Well, older than Jiang's, right? Because wasn't Jiang's the freshest?
Yeah. This person was put in there. Yes, they were entrapped here before Zhang was. I thought you were trying to say that they're older than Zhang. And I was like, no.
No. Just their time in the mountain is older because they had been there because they had started to become emaciated, and Jiang was not yet.
Yes. So this person is also possessed by a god and refers to themselves in plural. So there again, the psyche is a little broken. The sanity is questionable.
Yeah. It's Phelan is the name of this character.
Yeah.
I do believe he will be a problem for a while.
Yeah. He's going to be a big problem. Especially since he apparently, before he was imprisoned, had the capability of leveling a 10-mile radius. So he's going to be a big problem. But I'm hoping it's a problem that maybe Mugen has to deal with first. Maybe. But I don't know, because I'm so confused. Okay, so there's the whole interaction with him and basically Alton trying to appease to his humanity and get him to do what Alton says and fight with him against the Federation. And he has a moment of breaking through and talking to the human guy, but then the human just kind of swats him away and makes a break for the entrance and manages to escape. So even when appealing to the human half and the human person shines through, this person is also still just a broken person. And they're right.
And this is someone that that Alton knew.
Yeah.
He knew this person.
So why do you think
and failed.
Someone from 200 years ago is going to give a rip about you? They're just going to go scorched earth, man. Anyway.
Which is basically what the demigod in Phelan said. I don't care. Why would I care?
Yeah.
Your world is so boring. It would be more interesting if we broke it a little bit. What a crazy thing to say.
Yeah. So he escapes.
Yeah.
Rin and Alton chase after him, and as soon as they run out, there's Federation soldiers outside, and they trap them in there and prevent them from summoning the Phoenix, so they get captured. So here's my thing. One, then how did Phelan get out?
Right.
unless they allowed him to get
Well,
out
I mean,
also.
he did have crazy glowing blue eyes, and he probably looked scary.
Like maybe he can fly or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe he's got some dragon powers
Yeah,
and he flew away.
maybe.
So we don't know exactly what happened with that. But also, earlier in the chapter, in the section anyway, Alton said that he sent a message to the Empress to approve this plan, and she said yes. And that's like why they went in the first place, because he had the Empress's stamp of approval to do this. And now they're at the mountain, and suddenly the Federation is also there. And we had the whole fortune thing about the queen like betraying and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, so the queen is like has fully betrayed her own country, and
Well, yeah. And she also flew. She flew. Fled
she ran.
the city before it was destroyed.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, the queen, the empress is a potential traitor here.
Yeah.
Also, though, Chagan knew what Alton was going
That's
to
true.
do, and Rin told Katai.
That's also true. There's a few people that could have ratted out the plan.
So there are 3 potential leaks, but I think the only one that could have the Empress seems like the most likely. Because who else can move that amount of force? And
Yeah.
we've had really strong evidence to suggest that the Empress is shady at best.
Because she met with Federation people on that ship,
And she had
and
Tyr killed.
and she had the former leader of the Psyche, Tyr, killed on the ship. So like even if this wasn't her, she is still something shady is happening 100% with her. So I'm like, okay, now that you're talking about it, I'm like, okay, is the Empress being responsible for this actually like a misdirect? And it's like maybe Katai's story isn't real and he was like tortured and he's been left as a like a plant, like he's you know,
I also
uh
wondered that. Because it's suspicious.
that he lived. Yeah.
Just like it was suspicious that Najan lived.
Yeah.
And Chagan called that out. And then we didn't
Yeah.
ever really get a resolution
yeah.
to that.
I feel like I'm predicting that he will rescue Rin from being imprisoned by the Federation. I think Najong is going to come out
Yeah.
and reveal himself to be some sort of shaman in some regard, and rescue her, and hopefully Alton, maybe Alton. I don't know. Or Alton will get killed. I don't know. But man, there's just so many possible leaks that could have resulted in this. But man, wild.
The Empress would have been the only one that had the time and the resources, though.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
Rin didn't tell Katai until like right before they left.
That is true.
The Empress is known because Alton supposedly had time to get her a missive and then get a response.
And
somehow.
this is the trap that was mentioned in the fortune telling.
Yeah.
Because they thought that maybe the trap was them being lured to stay. I forget the name of the town they were in before. The one that they were so obsessed with holding. Even though the Federation found the mountain pass and took the wartime capital. Like we were led to believe that maybe that was the trap, but no, this is the trap.
Yeah. Well, Alton also believes that the Empress is one of them. That she is
A shaman, yeah.
that she's like one of the psych. A shaman, but like.
Yeah.
And I think.
He's got some misplaced loyalty.
Well, that, and I think that she is probably closer in alignment with the people that are entombed in the Magic Mountain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know that she's necessarily in control.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Lots of questions to answer.
Yeah.
And we've got one more section to do it.
Yeah. Yep. So for next time, we're going to finish the dang book, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll take a break. We may return to the sequel of this one eventually, but we gotta take a little break. So.
Yes, indeed. So I guess until next time, go do something fun. Go take care of yourself. And when you come back to it, happy reading.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Later.
Bye.